So, hello everybody. It's good to see you, as I say, on Get Savvy's webinar. As you can see the title there, it's budget-friendly LMS options using AI, and also we're giving a focus in this webinar to small to medium-sized nonprofit organisations. And the way we term this, this is somewhat about LMS strategy, whether it's your first or your next LMS, and it's getting kind of enterprise level learning and technology without the enterprise price tag. That is very achievable. So we'll talk about how during this session. So my name is Matt Dunphy. I'm a lead consultant in learning and development with Get Savvy. I'm joined as ever by my colleague, learning director Alan Reid. Alan, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Good morning, everybody. Delighted to be here. I'm really interested in what's going on in the sector at the moment, which is that L&D project costs have really sunk and are becoming much more affordable. People are able to do an awful lot more. And that's allowing people to spend a lot more on content rather than platforms. And what our research shows, members are very, very interested in content, much less interested in your platform for delivering it. So, quite an exciting time in the sector. Looking forward to talking about that.
Great, thank you, Alan. And I'm delighted to say we have a guest speaker with us today. We've got Sarah Gasper, who's learning manager at the British Equine Veterinary Association. Sarah, do you want to introduce your role and your experience of learning?
So I'm Sarah. I work for Beaver as their learning manager. I oversee and provide the skeleton for all our CPD. So we run about 40 attended courses a year and then 16 to 20 online webinars and then provide additional free to member online content as and when we can. Um, I'm a vet by trade. I'm not I'm not a techie person. I started this job to try and set things up in a way that would work for vets, which is why they employed a vet, not a IT person to do it. Um, and my education, I've worked at a couple of universities teaching vet students, and a lot of reading and feedback. Actually, I use our feedback a lot to guide where we prioritize what we do, and looking at bookings and attendance, that sort of stuff, data.
Thank you. And actually, we really love the true client perspective. I think many learning leads in organizations in the sector actually have that true expertise. We were literally having a conversation about herding sheep before the webinar. So there you go. We've got the balance in the room of a true professional and also someone who's an expert in learning inside organizations. So we'll get going today. Just a few housekeeping points before we start. Welcome if you've not joined us before, and this is a standard approach of ours. We always record the sessions and we share them afterwards, so we find that you don't have any true need to be furiously scribbling notes. You'll be able to read the slides or listen back later. And please do use the Q&A function. I know it can sometimes feel a bit daunting to offer a question or to raise a comment, but we're very, very open to that. Alan, probably in particular, will be tracking it as we go through, and we do have questions and answers at the end. So please do interact with us and each other using Q&A. And then we do offer various things for free, after the session, or indeed at a discounted rate. So one thing to flag for you, again, particularly if you've not been with us before, is we offer a 50% discount to our own platform flagship course, Managing Technology Change for Business People. Really vital kind of course if you're running projects and you're not a project manager by trade. And also, it shows you the rich features in our platform. So that's a 50% off discount as a delegate today. To talk about agenda and what we'll cover in a moment, Alan and I will kind of break down and break into a bit of the idea in the sector of what does it mean to have a limited budget for learning. We don't want to be doomy about this, but sometimes that is the reality. And how do you manage that? How do you make smart choices around your LMS, given there might be constraints? And we'll have a really vibrant conversation session with Sarah, and we'll probably be breaking down there again some themes around what to prioritize in a first or a next LMS in the opening years. And also we'll talk about rich AI features, where you can actually win some gains as a L&D team using AI inside an LMS. And we'll share a little bit about our service. We do actually offer a rapid LMS development service. So Alan will cover that and a brief description of some of our experience there and some of the key features we know LMS buyers and leaders look for. And then, as I say, we'll have Q&A at the end. So we'll get going. And again, as always, we kind of share a brief thought piece up front. And we started to get into the habit of kind of condensing this down into some really key messages. You know, if you're looking for one major takeaway today, this is probably it on screen. So, you know, limited learning budgets in the sector can be a reality, and we'll move on in a moment to why. But if we sort of say, what does Get Savvy see, you know, across our client base, or just talking to professionals in the sector, you know, we can see the wrong choices being made about an LMS platform or a provider or both. And sometimes you can feel you're slightly handcuffed then in a contract where you just might have had better research or better insight up front. We certainly see, and Alan might actually open this out, overspending on licensing, those kind of add-on costs for your platform that, okay, you might need, but there are actually cheaper or indeed free alternatives, especially if you've done the right research at the beginning. And then we do see, and this is a real key point for Get Savvy, we're talking about more and more, we actually see underspending on content, which is the bit the member sees, or if you're working in a charity, it might be what your volunteers see. You know, because we've spent so much on platform and the add-ons, we're not then getting to some really good spending or some provision for content and learning experience. The good news, without it being a silver bullet, is AI is a game changer in this world of technology and strategy. You know, we're finding the features inside LMS are so good right now and somewhat native to systems that it's just increasing your efficiency. It's making you sort of more effective as a team by default of having an LMS with AI. So, just to talk a little bit about these factors then. So, and we're hoping some of these feel recognized, and we certainly don't want to stigmatize this, but, you know, if we think about conversations with our clients or our research into the sector, when we say organizations can have a limited learning budget, it can mean different things. So one of the things we certainly highlight is sometimes it's just that L&D is not um, as close to the mind of your leadership. And that might be board level, trustees, councils, but even at this senior management team level, learning gets deprioritized, you know, in terms of the investment and the attention. And our view is learning for most membership organizations is driving your proposition. You know, for a charity, it can be a key way to retain volunteers. So we see many ways that we can help prioritize learning at that level. What we do say, you see the second there on the left, can sometimes feel like L&D is in the queue for investment. You know, we know L&D is important. We'll get to it. We'll examine some investment next year. And we're like, nope, this needs to be prioritized alongside core technology. It's really, really important. Again, we recognize in a sector that people might have a single individual contributor or leader around learning. If you're a particularly small organization, or you might be working in an agile way with IT members of your team or just the team. But it can sometimes feel a challenge to actually, how do I do more with what I've got right now as a team or as a leader? And we've got many ways that you can actually take advantage of AI, given that constraint. Moving over to this side, we do see kind of poor choices sometimes around strategy about how your content gets developed. It's not to say that you as leaders shouldn't be the curators, the leaders, the strategists of your content, understanding feedback from your members, donors, volunteers. But what we do find is often there are more and more affordable options now, including with Get Savvy, around creating very dynamic content at pace, so you can accelerate what you do without feeling like you need to worry about where you're spending. You know, you can focus internally on what you need to with that support. A couple of final things, and this is very much from what we're seeing right now in the sector. We do see this struggle or this ongoing challenge with where can I monetize content that I've got for learning? You know, we do recognize that learning sits within the membership benefits package. We do know there's lots of competition for people's spend. around learning content. But we also know that most organizations, including Beaver, have got really premium content led or authored by experts that in some cases can be monetized. It can be a paid for service. And obviously that helps with budgets overall. And then finally, probably classic forget savvy, but we do continue to talk about this. There is a growing understanding, awareness, and engagement with what AI can do inside learning. Some organizations are still exploring what it can do overall, but we certainly have a lot of expertise on how you can actually take advantage of it inside an LMS. So I'm going to pass on now. I'll probably keep the deck, Alan, but you're going to talk a little bit about kind of the antidote here. You know, what can you do if limited budgets are a factor?
Exactly. Thank you. Essentially, as Matt's saying, we're finding that despite learning and development being the key lever that most membership organizations have for building retention, building loyalty with their members, that key lever is very much underused. There is not enough investment going into it. So what we help organizations do and help them to sometimes to put it in front of their board is to do the key things that are going to get the most out of your budget, and in some ways increase the budget that the organization is prepared to spend on L&D. So first of all, a key thing that people often get wrong is researching the right solution for your members. The dirty little secret for most LMS system providers is that 90% of their clients are not non-profits. They're not membership organizations. They're not charities. They are commercial organizations or they're universities, and they have a very, very different profile. So although they can talk the talk and they've learned a little bit of the lingo, they don't understand what the real value adds are for membership organizations in particular, and other types of nonprofits. So the solution isn't quite right. It doesn't add those kind of high value integration elements, the CPD elements, all of that relationship building element that's so valuable to our kind of organization. So then the other element that people often struggle with is how do I justify the cost for my L&D project, for my LMS project? Your finance people can see the cost of the money out the door. They can see the cost of suppliers and license fees and all of those things. But it's very hard to justify, in some cases, why we should be spending this money. And we've got a very established playbook and very good evidence for demonstrating that investment in L&D is, as I say, your main lever for increasing the revenue you're going to get from membership. So even if you're not monetizing directly, and some are, and increasingly we see that being the case, but even if you're not monetizing directly, making the case that this is really what's going to drive membership, it's your main control for what you can do to diminish membership loss and increase membership growth and retention. There are really good arguments there, really good cases that could be made for the ROI in your L&D. What we see is that in that third one, by the way, and I'm going to avoid ranting because there are some really awful commercial models in LMS providers that are very hostile to membership organizations. So it's very important to review the licensing models and look at it over 3 years and look at it in different scenarios before you commit. So it's remarkably routine for LMS providers, for instance, to charge you for a member for the entire year. If they just put their nose into the system for 10 minutes on New Year's Day, they've consumed a license for the rest of the year. That's really common and very hostile to membership organizations. It's also really common that organizations are expected to guess how many learners they're going to have for the next 3-year period. And if the number goes up, then they get charged an awful lot more. If the number gets down, they don't get charged any less. They have to base it on that minimum fee. So a lot of licensing costs are particularly unsuited to the way membership organizations work. And you should know that up front. You should have a really clear view based on your maximum best case learner numbers, what these things are going to cost you. We've literally had people say, I thought I was going to spend this much on licenses. 2 years in, we're spending 3 and 4 times that much. So please take a very good look. All of our research shows on the fourth point that what members value and what members will vote with their feet and go away if they don't see it is spending on the content. They want to see new content being dropped into your platform, ideally every month, if not even more than that. We have a Netflix model now where people have those expectations, but they're also expecting to see more sophisticated content. So the kind of model of an image and text, an image and text, an image and text, all of the way through is just not good enough and a little bit embarrassing. So if you focus all of the maximum amount you can on your content creation, your content development, and your refreshing of your content catalog, that's where you're going to get the best ROI. That's where you're going to get the most benefit out of that. And then that final point is an area that we see LMS providers not really being aware of sufficiently. For membership organizations and other types of nonprofit, we see a really significant part of the benefit of the learning model being delivered through integration. If you're not seeing the totality of the member relationship in your CRM, if you're not able to use that information to then promote what you've done back to the member, grow the relationship, show you're relevant and targeted, show that what the next course for them is, then you're losing a really big chunk of your L&D benefit. So that whole integration piece, that whole seamless piece, and that whole growing your knowledge about the member and your ability to promote yourself back to them is often neglected. And that area of the budget has to be protected in order for you to get the benefit out of your project. So those are some of the key areas we advise on. When it comes to making the case to your board to say, okay, board, here, I'd like this sum of money to go out and do this stuff, and I promise you're going to get a load of benefits out of it. Here are some of the things that we find are persuasive to a board. And the benefit as well is that they do deliver in the real world. So on the left-hand side there, being able to say, look, we're going to mobilize quickly. This isn't going to be a year-long CRM style project. We can actually get this going within a few months. And then on the right-hand side, why does this matter? What we are then saying is that we can get beyond our current model of events only or one-off only training, and where things are fairly flat content. And things are quite disconnected, and we can move into a scalable, joined-up form of L&D, and we're able to do that pretty quickly, and we'll be able to use a lot of the assets we've already got. We'll just get a lot more life out of them than we are at the moment. And then the second thing is, to a board, they're quite persuaded if you're able to say, look, we're not just going to be handing a ton of money off to a software company and hoping for the best. We'll actually focus on low cost or zero license models like Moodle. These days, those models are so sophisticated, you have to make a really good case for the costed models. Why? What extra am I getting from the costed models? Because for most organizations, you can get everything you need without that license cost. So that then enables you to manage your predictability of costs. It's not going to run away from you in future years. And that can be very persuasive to a board. And then the third point on the left is we'll plan content as we go. We're going to transform our content. We've got years of really good content. And even though the format is out of date and the way it's delivered is out of date, the underlying knowledge that's relevant to our industry is still very, very valuable. So we can actually transform that very inexpensively now and make that a real asset as part of this project. So we're getting something almost for free as part of the delivery of the project. Those are persuasive messages. And then part of it, again, is picking an LMS where it's not going to be this massive development project. It's not going to be a whole series of things where you're the first person to have ever done it. It feels like there's a lot there that's ready for you to exploit from day one. And that allows the organization to get moving quickly and to see real benefits quickly. We find those elements are very persuasive to a board when you're seeking for funding in your L&D project.
Thank you, Alan. And I know we're going to move to a poll now. So members of the group, of the audience, if you've got any questions or comments around that, please feel free to share them. But I think we're going to take a look at, in your view, if you were speaking to your board, your council, your trustees right now, which of these areas might appeal most So I think Alan will share the poll on screen, and we'll leave a couple of minutes for you to ruminate. But maybe your top choice here, so is it important that you say you'll run a quick project? You'll be able to mobilize an LMS change project or your first LMS in 3 to 4 months, as Alan suggests. Is it about actually an understanding at board level of these ongoing costs and how we can minimize or even eradicate those in certain circumstances? Is it that your board or your trustees have an eye on your content? They know it needs to improve or get better, and they're attracted to the idea of doing that whilst you implement LMS? And finally, has anyone on your board got some AI and learning nous? Are they talking about some of these themes like avatars or, how AI operates within a learning system? So,
Fantastic. I'll
yeah,
just beg your pardon. I'll just end the poll and share the results. So
great.
let's do that. Um,
And we'll have a quick noodle. I'll have a quick chat on results. What's really great, actually, is what's coming across most of all there. I'm going to go for the stats. So that's 55% of you, over half, are saying this license fee matters. Maybe that certain pain you're having right now, or please feel free to share. But yeah, we know that that's important. We've talked to so many of our clients about that impact and really what the other options are. I'd probably say kind of balance across the rest, which is great because I think we can then go in and talk with Sarah a little bit more about these other factors, or what is most on our minds about securing investment with board around an LMS.
That's really
Good.
great. That's really great. And then the interesting dichotomy there with that the response to licensing models is that from our research and our experience with projects, a solid 80% of LMS projects do include a really substantial licensing model that so literally people are paying tens of thousands a year that grows rapidly beyond their expectations. So I think there's a growing awareness of that in the sector. So that's good to see there. So great.
Yes, I think you're right. As a positive, it's good to see people are understanding that factor. So we're going to go into conversation section now with Sarah. And again, just to reintroduce this idea that we're going to pose a number of questions or share some features with Sarah and get her real life opinion on what would be very valuable at Beaver, or what has been explored in the past. And actually, honestly, probably Sarah, what you think your members wouldn't be so attracted to, particularly when we get into AI features. So perhaps the first question for you then, and actually I'll bring this down so that we can talk for a bit until I need to reshare features. Um, so if we're talking about kind of the first year of an LMS, whether it's your first one or it's a next one, you have to make a change. What advice would you give to the group today about, what they must prioritize in that conversation, probably including how to position it with board or trustees?
So you meaning once if they've agreed, or in trying to persuade them to agree?
It's a good qualification. Let's say, what would you prioritize in terms of their agreement? And what do you need to prioritize in terms of just getting it done, getting a new LMS implemented?
So for us, our a lot of that would boil down to a one thing with me, and that is knowing who your membership are and how they are likely to use it. So our membership is mobile equine vets, ambulatory equine vets, the vast majority. Um, a quarter of those are in the rest of the world, not the UK. And we do have about a quarter that are students. So we've got quite a diverse mix of people and locations, but one common theme is that most of them will be out on the road for a proportion of their day and dealing with animals, so not in an office. The vast
Mhm.
majority of them won't be office
Yeah.
based. So for us, something that is um, quick and easy to use, that they don't need to remember multiple logins, because we were giggling about this before. Vets are not very patient people. We can be the most patient people ever with animals, with clients, with trying to understand an illness or a treatment. But actually, technology is there to make your life easier. It just needs to work and make your life easier. It
Mm.
shouldn't
Yeah.
require hours of patience. Um, that's where most of our membership will be coming from. They're also generally rubbish with passwords. We know this just with our website. So it needs to integrate seamlessly with their one password that they need to get onto the website. It needs to be slick. Everybody has a shorter attention span nowadays, I think, with
Hmm.
YouTube and shorts and things. So
Yeah.
there needs to be, a good bang for your buck for your minute, good dopamine release by the end of it. Um, but also have the ability to go into much greater depth if they have an area of particular interest. So there's sort of two bits. There's the interactive quick quiz, your sort of pop quiz type thing that you can do just to top up your CPD hours. And then there's the area where actually you've got a ongoing case of something or other severe, interesting lameness, and actually you want the in-depth knowledge on what are the world leaders thinking about with this at the moment, rather than just a 5 minute is it lame type thing. So there's quite diverse angles that we're trying to achieve. And I think
Yes.
keeping it in real terms for your board is really
Hmm.
important. You need to hit the business model. You need to make it appealing to your membership, but it needs to be real. And it needs to. I'm lucky. Most of our board are vets, so I need to make it obvious that it would work for a vet.
Yes, and I think we're working with a number of healthcare organizations driven by professionals, and I think you're right. I mean, what I love, if I summarize, is keeping it real, keeping it tangible, especially if some of your audience is out there, your learners at a senior level are members of your board, for example. But I love the way you focus on user experience and user needs or learner needs,
Mm,
because I think if we can get that right, then both in the conversation with trustees, let's say, or in actual development of an LMS, we were following the right line. It's what they need. And then finally, for me, just as an L&D geek, learning on the go, bite-sized learning, in mobile learning, I'm a big advocate for that because I think it is the reality for a lot of professionals. If we talk about next, then if we kind of break into, okay, you've got approval for an LMS, and I know this is some years ago for you. In terms of the key features in LMS, then inside the system, what did Beaver prioritize in year one, and what did it kind of decide could wait till later?
So when we initially set it up, and I was part of the team that set it up, we were looking at it as a almost as a resource holder. This is a while ago, this is 8 or 9 years ago. So pre-COVID, LMSs were not being used how they are hoping to be used nowadays. But we were using it as a resource for our course material. So we were looking at setting up blended learning for some of our introductory level courses. So we wanted somewhere to be able to put a whole load of pre-recorded lectures and quizzes and case scenarios and that sort of thing. Um, we discussed having live meetings on it, but at the time, it was felt we needed to consolidate within the course structure. Um, that was that was mid-March 2020. I had
Oh,
that
yes.
discussion
Well,
with
what
with
happened
my
around that
boss.
time?
A week later, the world closed down and we went into a pandemic lockdown for the first time ever. Our 40 attended courses that we had planned and bookings on that year, obviously, in at least initially, weren't going to happen. So we were very, very fortunate in that we had this LMS in place and it had a feature which allowed live meetings because at the time we didn't really know much about Zoom or Teams. Teams didn't really exist in the way that it does now.
Hmm.
Um, so it already had this feature. We'd been using it lightly, very lightly, for about 8 months. So our membership were aware of it. And within the space of a couple of weeks, we were able to move a lot of our immediate course content online onto our courses with pre-recorded lectures and with doing live demos and live lectures. And then we started having live case discussions just to try and keep those vets that were furloughed, who didn't know if they'd still got a job, keep their brains engaged, build a community. We gave out some free memberships to bring people into our community, and we worked really hard on that sense of community. And we're here to support you. And if these live sessions are working for you, we'll carry on doing them. And actually, are we now 6 years down the line? Those live sessions have changed in that we host them on Zoom and they're
Hmm.
monthly. The normal level ones are monthly, the advanced level ones, we run 6 a year. Um, but we haven't seen a drop in attendance, which for me is really exciting. Our world has gone back to normal otherwise, but this has stayed. We still get really good feedback. I ask our attendees, I mean, they are a biased audience because they're already there, but we ask our attendees every time whether or not they want us to carry on. Overwhelmingly, they do. Our live attendance ratio this winter has actually been higher in the last couple of months than it's been last year. So they're getting stronger. And for our overseas audience, they're a vital part of the membership. Because
Yes.
obviously our overseas members aren't going to be flying over from Australia to attend a 1 day course regularly, whereas they will log into a meeting a month.
And I think what's really exciting about that is, it was a really unique point in time.
Hmm.
Let's say that. There's so much more to say, but um, I think you're really highlighting the focus on webinar learning, video-based learning, the live virtual event. Because I think you're right. Of course, we need to prioritize courses or digitizing and staging our assets. But I think both since the pandemic and even now, uh, this has become a very popular
Yeah.
format for learning. And also, I do really like the point because many organizations we work with, they've got international members, they've got international learners. So that's the thing we tapped into when we suddenly realized we needed to be more online.
Yeah. And the
Um,
global experts, that's what for me, we run them we run 6 a year with experts from around the world. And for me, it is so exciting. I can literally get the top three people in biologics for joins. Um, speaking in the same room for an hour and a half, just riffing, as in your terminology, riffing, or bouncing off each other's, discussing their top tips and their reality, or discussing the latest research about how you actually apply it in real life. And
yeah.
it's that ability to be real and not it's never faked, but
Mhm.
not as instant and immersive. I think for me that's what really engages people. So I think this works really well for us.
Yeah, great. And I think that's it. We'll talk a little bit more about features and AI next, but I think it's kind of understanding the offering broadly. What are you wanting to offer? Is it fireside chats, expert sessions, courses, webinars? And then maybe saying which matter most to our members in year one, year two. And then you can always build and
Yeah.
expand if that's successful. I'm going to reshare my screen now and just dip in and make sure I do this. Quickly and fully. Great, we're back here. So, just what we're going to do now is the sort of three areas we highlighted for the group. And group, if you do want to ask questions or comments, please do feel free. And we're going to look at how AI can help three particular areas: reducing manual effort around learning and learning teams, enhancing the learner experience, which we're already talking about, and then finally building more capability in your learning team. If I share these next three features, basically for Beaver, knowing your members, which of these are you using right now? Which of these would you use? And which of these are you sort of, it's got a slight query around? And if I just name them for you, if it helps you, we are seeing the use of things like ChatGPT, Copilot, other generative AI tools to curate or create some of our content, storyboards, or even kind of the skeleton of a course structure or even course content. We're seeing the ability to be able to give our content to protected generative AI tool, and it feeds us back good quizzes and assessment content really quickly. And sometimes we can actually give it data, even outside of an LMS and say, can you summarize this data in terms of, how is course completion across my membership or even within certain subgroups of my membership right now? Which of these sort of appeal to you or are you using, and which are the ones I'm not so sure about that yet for Beaver.
So we are using we're using the first two definitely.
Hmm.
I use it as a creative assistant for giving me a skeleton or something to edit. I find it's much easier to and less time consuming to edit than to start
Yes.
right from a blank piece of paper. So it's really good up to a certain level. at an introductory level for veterinary content, it's actually quite good. You do need to sense check it and just reality check it. And the images, I tried to do a case scenario with it, with a AI inspired image to try and add some interest to the page. And the images at the moment that I can generate are just hilarious. So less so with that. I think it's got a bit of learning to do there yet. Quizzes, yes, we use it for quizzes. I will sometimes put, I've got Copilot in, and I can use it on work mode so that I'm not sharing people's content
Yeah,
across the web without realizing.
great.
But I will put transcripts of PowerPoint, of narrated PowerPoints and things into it, and then ask for 5 multiple choice questions, or content, interactive content to come out of that. And actually, it's surprisingly good. I'm
Hmm.
quite cynical when it comes to AI, and yeah, it's for quizzes and thinking up multiple choice questions. It's really quite good. It'll give you options, and it just speeds the process up. You do have to check, but you can make it go and check on itself, and just find the areas that it's pulling those questions from, just to make it easier for you to check. Um, so we use it for that, definitely. Um, Completion data, we aren't using that much completion data at the moment. It's something I want to get into more, and I think it is an area that I hope in the next 6 months we will. We're
Hmm.
currently trying to build an agent, I believe they're called, to assess
They
our
are.
feedback, which is what I've used more consistently, is course feedback. So just to make that more accessible. It normally takes me literally 2 or 3 days to wade through feedback from 40 courses and online interactions, to produce reports for our board of management and our education committee. So having an agent that will be able to do that again with me checking its output, should considerably speed up that process once we've got it written.
That's wonderful.
Um,
Thank you for spanning all of those. I think the only things I'd highlight is you're mentioning ethics and the arbitrage of this information. I think that's really important. These tools are so handy for reducing effort. We still do our editing and our quality assurance. And
yeah.
I do agree with you using natural language queries, whatever your data is. I have been the person evaluating masses of data to try and find insight. AI is actually quite astute in terms of what it surfaces from a lot of data. If I talk next about kind of the things that enhance learner experience, again, I'll talk through these. And I think probably a bit more of a temperature check. Which of these do you think would appeal to your members, even if you're not using them right now? Which do you think they'd have more queries around? So we've got kind of AI tutors, and there's two modes of this. You can use an AI avatar to present your content. It's a very cost-effective version. Doesn't mean you have to lose human presenters on videos, but it's really useful. And as you mentioned, there's an advanced use of AI avatars for coaching. We're actually having dialogue with your learners, and that's certainly becoming possible. The one in the middle is a little, a wonder for me. Is just we spent so many times previous to AI thinking about how we create workflows which nudge our learners around completion, around what they do next. Really, truly inside LMS, AI is doing this for us. So that wonderful moment of oh, you didn't finish X, do you want to go back and do it now, or why don't you try this course next? And then finally for me, we've mentioned gamified learning, and I should qualify, authoring tools have been able to create templates for games and quizzes before AI. What we're finding is AI is doing that in a much easier way. It's presenting options for you very rapidly. So which of these do you think your members would really appreciate? Which of them do you think they're less interested in?
So I think this is one which ethically for me, is quite important. So whether or not the members would appreciate it, I and our education committee are wary of AI tutors. I think
Hmm.
if they're an avatar that's just repeating what's already there, I think I think that's fine. That's just a different concept. But I think for us, we are slightly wary of AI taking over teaching simply because we want to make sure that our educational content is sound and it's not misteaching something or
Hmm.
being slightly inaccurate. Because for that, the reputational damage of that would be quite significant. Um, so I'm wary about that one at the
Hmm.
moment, whether or not the members would like it. I'm taking that decision slightly out of their hands because of our reputation. Um, I think it's something that is coming, though. It's just how you police it and monitor it. Even with discussion groups, we are always looking at ways of how we keep the discussion online and how we make sure that the any suggestions given are appropriate and
Hmm.
correct. AI driven nudges, I love the idea of this. We're currently transitioning through some IT systems, but this is one of the things that we've been looking at and trying to work on. Previously, we've always done it manually. I've gone through and every course that I've put together, I've tagged three other ones to it, for the team to go and promote. Um, and gamified learning, I think some of our members would absolutely love this. Just to bring them back in again, particularly if you've got a lot of dry materials, insurance being one of them. I
Mm.
mean, if I could gamify insurance, that would be amazing.
Yes, and I think that's a yes, right? I think I'll move us on to our final section, but to summarize, I think the ethics are important. We use avatars a lot in the presentation of our content. We think that really works, but the actual dialogue and whether it's how it's sharing real SME advice, expertise, I think
Mm,
there's still caution there. Nudges I love, as I've said, and on gamified learning, absolutely yes. It just very rapidly with AI now, we can transform what was just a multiple choice set of questions to a scenario, a drag and drop or something real life that they could explore with different options. Just to move on then to kind of back to your team or to kind of what enhances or builds capability inside a team. We've got three quick areas to cover. We've talked a lot, Alan and I, about scaling learning experience design. We believe AI is a real accelerator of that. Just, allowing your team to create more content using the tools. Or to see more content created. There's various things under the hood of LMS using AI. They're actually correcting errors now or testing ahead of any of your user testing. So there is some process improvement elements. And then finally, I've probably mentioned insight before, but this is really the board moment again. If you've got a lot of data and you want to show off as a team around what we really know from the data, AI is becoming a really powerful tool. And so, which for your team at Beaver do you think would boost your capability most?
Um, for me, because I spend quite a lot of time looking at my data, the insights that it gives you on the data and the ability to mine in different ways. I start looking at membership type and what they're completing or what they're accessing, spotting trends so that we can direct our learning to support what our membership seem to be using. Would all be, yeah, that's something I'm really looking forward to being able to use a lot more. Um, I think improvement is always good. It's always something there's always room for improvement. There's no such thing as perfection. I think with AI and with technology, that's just so true. Like it's always changing, it's always growing, it's always improving. So if it can improve itself rather than waiting for someone to go on a course and learn how to do it and come back and then start implementing it, and then you end up with half your LMS that looks a bit old and half the LMS that's got a different format. If it could do all that, that would be amazing.
Yes, and there's things like auto tagging, or actually, as I
Yeah,
say, testing ahead of the human
yeah.
test. It
and
is
and getting
definitely got that
yeah, all
sophistication.
that baseline testing and background stuff that at the moment it's just a slog for anyone
Mm.
in our office to get through. We're a really busy office, a really good team, but there's only so many hours in the day, and if things could improve themselves and learn and improve themselves, so you could just carry out some key checks, because it does still need checking, then that would be fabulous.
Wonderful. And I know we've talked about generally about, good content and how you achieve it and where AI can actually help generate. Sarah, thank you so much. I think it's really been giving us a window both into where the live Beaver members are at with their learning, and you've shared so much. I would actually say, I don't know if I said this before the webinar, there's an awful lot of experimentation and use of AI you're already doing. So I feel like this is a strategy that's growing. Hopefully you share that
Yeah, for
too.
someone who's completely cynical about AI and thinks it's potentially the devil's spawn, I actually use quite often and quite a lot.
Well, and we will. I'm sure there are ways for us to look at the sustainability factors and offsetting our
Yes.
usage, and just what America and the giants are doing around wanting us to buy products left, right, and center.
Yeah.
There's definitely those things to keep in mind, but
Yeah.
we believe there's good use of it as well. I'm going to shift now, and I'll probably bring the deck down, Alan. I know we've got about 15 minutes left. You can describe a bit about our service, and then we'll see if we've got any questions to cover at the end. So if you're
Sure.
good, I'll stop sharing now.
Okay, very good. So then let me just quickly go through some elements that we find are important for organizations we're working with. Um, One of the things that, and it was borne out by the survey, people are being unpleasantly surprised by licensing costs and the ongoing costs. So one of the things we found very important is that we provide a low cost fixed price model, license free. And essentially, it means that organizations are able to spend all of their money on the content and the things that their members really value. We'll talk in a minute about what the features are that we see organizations value most and they get the most benefit from. But one of the things that we found to be really successful on these kind of projects is to get it going rapidly, to get it in place, integrated to your website, integrated to your CRM, and then build on top of that. So get it up and running within 2 to 3 months, not this kind of big 9 month all-consuming project. And then build rapidly to improve it based on the learning you're getting yourself on what people are using, what people are taking up. Um, with Moodle, it's not even close. Well over 80% of learner experiences in the world are delivered through a single platform through Moodle. There's this enormous community of developers, of add-ons, of new features. Moodle was actually the first out of the gate with AI-based features, just as an example. So getting away from that kind of grasping hostile to membership licensing model that we see all over the place, and living up to our principles of don't spend your money on the platform, spend it on the content. That's where you're really going to get the benefit. We find that to be really important. And then, of course, we found over the years that although we use AI tools and we pass on the cost benefit of AI tools, what really matters is expert instructional design, experts in creating the content in a blended model with our clients. So we talked about it a little bit here, but we have this role model where the client is very much the curator, the owner. They are the people who understand what their members want. But they shouldn't be doing every scrap of production because that just slows things down, and then you don't get the scalability, you don't get the volume of content we want. So all of those things work to our philosophy of allowing the client very much to have a vision for what content they want to produce, and then to be able to achieve it rapidly and at a reasonable cost. Great. So if we move on from there, let's talk a little bit about what really matters and specific examples of actual projects. So this one here with the Commonwealth of Learning. Matt, do you want to talk a little bit about that one?
Very much, yeah, an example of case study where we have developed various elements of the LMS and content for them. So real needs to rapidly move through both of those stages. And I think the important thing to introduce here is that we work a UK centric team. We work with UK clients, but we very much have a capability which is based in India. So if we're working internationally, there are time zone advantages to that. It also helps with our costs. We get very affordable rates with our wider team in India. So in terms of the interaction for the Commonwealth of Learning and what we generally do, it's a combination of our kind of advisory and project expertise, and using a kind of international experts really in content and LMS development, particularly around the Moodle platform. So I think, yeah, giving a broad example, people could read the sort of detail on screen, but there's a combination of LMS and content using, project management skills and the India team.
Absolutely. And then one of our kind of controlled boasting elements is how we delivered an AI powered platform in just 6 months, including multiple days of a course that used to be delivered in person, and then converted that to a standalone artifact of self-paced learning using, by the way, Sarah, sorry, AI-driven trainers. But what we were doing there, by the way, I value your point that we want to not be masquerading that the AI is the experts. We're actually using them in replacement to voiceover actors, for instance, using them to protect the time of the experts. Because one of the challenges when you're producing content is your experts are not that available for hours to redo production. So our model is protect the experts in terms of getting their knowledge and approving and being happy with everything that's being discussed. But then the production is done separately, and then they get to check it again at the end. So with the AI model, we were able to refine and redo the content delivery 100 different ways without straining the attention span or the availability of the experts. So what we were able to do is to stand up the platform, integrate it, come up with an integration model that means we can link it to CRM and single sign-on for the website and e-commerce, plus have multiple days of learning content converted into an immersive, self-paced, modern AI-driven learning artifact, and all within 6 months. And we've repeated that model through multiple different client scenarios as well, and turned it into a low-cost playbook. So then what we wanted to talk about really briefly is if you're in the process of making the case for learning and development, you're going to your board and saying, here's why it's worth spending our money on this thing instead of spending the money on something else. Here are the things that we found really deliver the benefit. Because every LMS platform will say, here is a list of 100 things that are wonderful, but we found these are the things that really matter. So first of all, learning that the platform must support your main lever for revenue growth in a membership organization, which is member retention, member growth. So being able and making it as easy as possible that all of your content in the LMS lends itself to being part of your value proposition on your public website, within your events pages, within your learning pages, in a way that you control. And that you don't have to do loads of development and loads of integration. So you're able to publish and make value and promote the value of your content easily without making it into this very complicated series of barriers. So that enables you to get the benefits out of your project easily and use it any way you choose. The other thing that we found can be a barrier and really does make a big difference with LMS providers that may not be that used to membership when you get right down to it, is that for membership organizations and other types of nonprofits, it's all about different types of learners. Now, you don't have this problem in a commercial organization. You don't have this problem in a university. Everybody gets everything. But in a nonprofit, it's very much profiled on what have you already done with us? What type of member are you? What are you in good standing when you're paid up? Where's your CPD record right now? So everything is very dependent on the profile of the learner who's coming into the LMS. And if you're not in full control of that, you're blocked from being able to do a lot of the things that you want to be able to do to promote the value of it. So yes, on the multiple e-commerce models, that should be a minimum expectation now, but also on the refinement of costs and benefit and access based on the human factor of who's coming to who is your learner. We also find that CPD, for us, CPD is a kind of religion. It weaves its way like a thread through every single thing that you do with your learner. And not only should they have a CPD goal and a CPD relationship with you, and every bit of content that you're doing should reflect in their CPD. What we find is that if you can get the psychology of it right, the LMS needs to support that psychology. It really makes all of the difference. And it needs to be more than just a kind of number of hours, or this particular learning is worth 3 hours, like a McDonald's worker with 3 stars on their badge. It has to really reflect to their professional attributes, their competency framework, what they're trying to achieve this year. So every bit of learning should allow them to reflect on that, to set goals. And then the AI element can say, well, if you have these goals, this learning will help you achieve those goals. So a much more sophisticated CPD relationship. Then what we find, of course, everything, and with the emphasis on the everything, being tracked into the CRM, because as nonprofits, membership organizations, what you're really benefiting from when somebody consumes a bit of content or interacts with a bit of content is how you can develop the relationship with that person. You can show the next things that they should be doing with you. You should show the next unrelated things like events and pieces of written content that could be derived from their interest in this piece of learning. All of that helps demonstrate you as their valued career partner, as their valued business partner, because you genuinely understand them. But that's only possible if the LMS and your CRM and other tools are linked together almost like they're one piece of software. The integration is that good. And then, of course, Sarah mentioned as well, the integration in terms of data, of reporting, of dashboards, of being able to come at the data any way you like, so that you can say, we should be doing more of this and less of this, or we're getting tremendous amounts of value out of that. Just a kind of 20-second example. Sarah mentioned people who are on the road. We have health visitors in our membership projects. We have osteopaths. We have people who are incredibly time poor and are not sitting at a laptop. One of our clients recently found that the most consumed piece of content they'd ever had was a 7-minute piece of self-standing content that just gave a particular set of knowledge and checked if people understood it. It was 10 times consumed more than anything else. And then they immediately went, great. Can we create 30 more of those, please? So that kind of insight really is what makes the difference. So really, we on all of our projects, we hone in and focus on these elements, and then other things can be a bit of a luxury after that. If you get these elements right, you'll really get the value out of your project. So great. So we've got a few questions that have come through on the Q&A. So let me just go through with those. So one question that has come up a couple of times, which is, and I think we'll have to limit ourselves to one question in the interest of time, is how important is self-standing content compared to things like videos of lectures and videos of webinars? And I think I'll respond by saying my previous example possibly answers that. People who are sitting in a car waiting for their next appointment, or waiting for their next patient to arrive or whatever, if they can have something they can consume in a very little time that is self-contained and immersive, and gives them what they need, they'll consume it. They'll make the best of it. Whereas longer pieces and things that are just almost like YouTube videos of lectures and so on, we find they get less take up. I'm very conscious of time, Matt. So do you mind if I just hand over back to you, and then just to wrap? Is that okay?
Absolutely. So thank you for that. And just to reiterate, I mean, it will aim, if you've shared more questions, to get back to you after the session. And on that point, it is, as Sarah says, what our members saying is most effective. And as Alan says, it might be that bite-sized short piece, standalone, that they can consume on the move. So just say you will get the recording after today very quickly, so you can look back if you want to share this indeed with colleagues. You get the 50% discount to the course, and we also share a research study from 2025 into learning trends in AI in learning across the sector. Really valuable read, that one. And then finally, look, if anyone's got a support need out there, I think we're going to share a feedback form very quickly. do get in touch. We're very happy to have a free conversation and share some advice based on the challenges you've got right now. And I think then just on the final screen, we've got some webinars coming up. You might have seen those on the way in. We're actually doing a lunch and learn series this year, which is like a drop in at lunchtime, quick kind of content themes and demos. If you're available for that, we're running several. And then the two you will have seen on the way in and is on our events page are our May and June topics coming up, our main webinar series. So do please join our community or continue around our community. Really value having your insight and your engagement on these webinars. And I must say, we've got the feedback form on screen. But Sarah, thank you so much. There's been so much kind of you shared about the Beaver experience, and it really does sound exciting and relevant for your learners. I think you've really got that piece right.
I do find it exciting. It's weird. I love being a vet. I love being a clinical vet. I actually hate IT and computers and sitting at my desk, but I find the challenge of understanding what other people who work in the job that I love need to learn to help them and make their work better and help the animal population, and then putting that into a way that they can access is really thrilling, actually really exciting challenge to solve.
Well, what a perfect way to frame the webinar. I agree. I think Alan and I, as change professionals and learning professionals, we agree. It's a massive version of paying it forward. Thank you, everyone. Do please, we really value the feedback. So if you've got a moment before you leave, please do that. If you want to get in touch with us, we are here. And please come back to the next webinars. We'd really love to see you with us then.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, everybody. And thanks so much, Sarah. That's been some
No
fantastic
worries.
insight. Really enjoyed talking to you.